Hey yo, what's up everybody? So finally, I feel like I've had enough time. I've experienced enough of the game's systems, monetization, visuals, combat, and grinding to be able to give a full review of Duet Night Abyss. Now, before any of that, I want to address my previous video because see, my previous video seemed to get a lot of dislikes, and judging by the comments, a lot of people seem to have misunderstood what I was saying or just not aware of why I made the video in the first place. And maybe they're not aware of the changes the game went through over the past couple of days, literally right after I dropped my video. So for that reason, I want to dive into that briefly before we get into the review. So in that video, I'll talk about my concerns with obtaining secret letter clues, a resource you need to get weapons and characters. I saw a problem that could be a bigger issue down the road depending on the clue economy. I think I can best sum up my overall viewpoint by reiterating a response to a recent comment. It reads, my personal gameplay experience and the fact that I knew would eventually exhaust one-time clue acquisition methods such as chests and achievements is what drove me to make this video. I did 30 runs before unlocking my first character and almost 20 before my first weapon. That's nearly 500 clues. The point was that a 10% drop rate with no floor or pity plus a rare currency can be OG Genshin weapon banner levels of disastrous, depending on the availability to rebuild currency and recover from bad luck. True, probability can even out over time. However, at the same time, 10% of 100 is still 10, and that 10 can come early or not. And apparently the devs were quick on their feet before this became an issue that most people would even notice, because the same day I dropped this video, they released this patch update. You may all say thank you now, my loyal friends and subjects, because the update reads, besides fixed rewards, secret letter clues now have the chance to drop from enemies in all commission gameplay, with rates increasing alongside your trial rank. So you probably didn't recognize that the hordes of monsters you defeat are now also contributing to your clue income. Need I remind you, my dear subjects, that I am the reason for your rise from the slums of Ice Lake, where you previously had no clue where your next clue would come from. I am the reason for that beautiful collection you have there. So anyway, moving on to the review. Sidebar, but doesn't it feel like the criteria for a review just keeps evolving in this space? Nothing is wrong with giving your first impressions, but I think same day, next day reviews are kind of too early, you know what I mean? Like, I'm seeing people review the game 2 days after drop. And the game dropped with tons of content to check out. So unless you've played the closed beta, which is pretty similar, how are you genuinely reviewing the game?
But anyway.
Okay, I'm starting a review. Damn. I've been following Duet Night Abyss for quite some time, and I was really worried about this game, man. Speaking of closed beta, I was happy to be able to get into CBT2, and I thought it was great, but the game needed some polish. I didn't have a lot of time at the time to make videos on it, but I enjoyed the game, and I left a lot of feedback in the surveys. However, the sheer amount of bugs I encountered, plus the lackluster visuals, had me worried. But I thought, no worries. There'll be plenty of time before this game drops. Then bam, they announced a drop date. And I was like, okay, I won't talk about how I'm worried about the game because I just knew I was going to see an improvement when I checked it out at Tokyo Game Show. I didn't. When I played the game there, it was the exact same game. But the people at the booth were super amazing and by far the nicest, most invested people in any booth there. Nonetheless, after Tokyo Game Show, I decided to not state my concerns because at that point, the game was literally just a couple weeks away. And so here we are. Was I right to worry? Let's find out. Because they made such a bold move and heavily emphasized it in their pre-release livestream, I think the subject is worth talking about. So let's talk about monetization. This game first appealed to gacha audiences, only to remove monetization from the game and from their weapons and characters altogether, letting us know that we can get it all for free 99.
Free 99!
And I'm really happy about that. And I enjoy that we can get all these non-cosmetics in the game for free. And we can even get some of these cosmetics for free too, which I also think is dope. And I think this sends a strong message to the players and to other games in the space. because if this game can continue to improve in quality while maintaining this cosmetics only pay model, and I do say if, because this game is starting off a little bit further back compared to some of its competitors, but if it can continue to grow and improve, this will be the game that players continue to point to as an example, asking their favorite gacha games, when are they coming out with more free skins and weapons? Given the reputation that games in this space have built up, this is a very bold move, and this game definitely gets bonus points for just that alone. Alright, shifting gears here. Let's talk about the first thing you notice when you turn this game on. I'm talking about the visuals, y'all. I appreciate the visuals in this game now, a little bit more than when I started. Now, I would not have said that at all if you had asked me about the visuals when I first started this game. And I'm not gonna say that they're outstanding now, but I can say they have grown on me quite a bit. And I don't think I've ever seen a game where prior to any patch update, the game just randomly starts to look better. And it does in this game. And I think that's largely due to two main factors. One, the lighting and color palette. In later areas of the game, they drastically improve the lighting and their environments to fit the mood and to add drama. At one point in the story, the whole main city gets a visual upgrade with lots of lights and reflections, and this lighting makes the characters look better. The second thing is the characters themselves. We start seeing more playable characters with better lighting later on in the story, and playable characters have a greater impact on the visuals in this game. And that's true for any game, but especially this game. The detail and polygon count between NPCs and playables is just night and day, man. There's no comparison. They look really bad. I could go on and on about character design in general for this game, including the playables as well, but I don't want to get too far in the weeds, so let's go ahead and keep it pushing. As much as I try to give props where it's due, make no mistake, this game still looks dated compared to its contemporaries. Currently, with games like Wuthering Waves being a visual powerhouse, and soon a slew of heavily polished games are on the way, games like Ananta, Arknight's Infield, Limit Zero Breakers, they all look visually stunning. And that got me thinking, maybe that was their strategy from the beginning. Just maybe Pine Studio rushed the game out because they wanted players to get hooked on their game before there were any other new visual powerhouses to compete with. Because just like Wuthering Waves, they reasoned that they could always improve the game in subsequent patches if they garner enough core fans. And that seems to be even more apparent when taking a look at the upcoming 1.1 content. It looks leaps and bounds better than the current patch. Now let's go ahead and get into the general feel and gameplay. When it comes down to traversal, you have the good and the bad. The helix jump is pretty cool, and I like it a lot. It gets pretty addictive, and I accidentally tried to do that when I played another game. But when it comes to climbing in this game, bruh, it's terrible. Like, what the fuck is this? This is absolutely terrible. I see what they're trying to do when you're in the city because it kind of works there and the building ledges allow you to be able to flip around them. But everywhere else, climbing is complete ass. You're gonna spend a lot of time in the menus in Duet Not Abyss, and the menus of this game have a lot going on. There's menus on top of menus on top of menus. In some ways, I get it. The menus make certain things convenient. For example, in other open world games, instead of navigating endless menus, you have to actually go to a place to perform the task. Go to the blacksmith to forge, head to the dungeon to access it, go to a special spot for events and in-game challenges. Here, everything is in a menu. It kind of begs the question of why make a full world then? But anyway, you eventually get used to the menus, but I occasionally still forget what I was doing while navigating the menus because there's a lot of menus. And we also have to talk about the bugs. There are a lot of them. There's the freezing during matchmaking bugs, the controller equals spin around in a circle bug.
Go in a circle! Go in a circle! Go in a circle!
the float in the air bug, the keeps buffering bug. And at this point, I'm playing the game with a can of Raid, okay? The thing is, these bugs still existed in CBT2. So, like, why are they still here? I filled them out in the survey. I talked about bugs. Anyway, there's also the falling in water. It's not a bug. It just looks like a bug. I don't know why our character can't swim, or at least make a falling in water animation so it looks more intentional. Anyway, moving on. The next thing I want to talk about is one of the most prominent things in the game, the combat. This is what you'll probably spend most of your time either doing or preparing to do. The combat in this game is very simplistic, but at the same time, it's kind of charming and entertaining. You know, just to see hordes of enemies being tossed around, it's kind of satisfying. At the same time, it does get a bit repetitive. So there's one thing to look out for when you play this game, because there's not many other things that your character can do. You have 2 skills and basic attacks. The other game modes outside of normal farming could also use some general polish and something to further differentiate them from the regular grind. The only thing that keeps this experience fresh is the fact you have a large cast of characters and weapons at your disposal to try out and build. None of the characters have unique combo strings or basic attack animations though. They all just perform the same set of animations based on the weapon. And at first, this wasn't very satisfying to me. It felt like the characters were less original. But at the same time, I do appreciate how customizable everything is. Every character can switch to any weapon class in the game. In fact, the weapons can be customized themselves. I also like how each character is able to be fitted with different accessories and can be further customizable with skins. But back to the main combat. Some of my problems with the combat are targeting and lock on. There's a lot of times where the lock on feature just doesn't work at all. The direction of your attacks sometimes depend on the direction you're facing, and sometimes it depends on the camera angle. And depending on if you're doing a basic attack, a skill, or a plunge, it's quite inconsistent. This inconsistency can be very annoying. However, you can get used to it, but I just rather they fixed it. Anyway, you can't talk about combat without talking about the grind. I think this game scratches an itch that a lot of people have had with a lot of these games that have come out recently in the space. A lot of these games come out with so few things to keep you playing. You essentially play the game and you instantly level up your characters, do the required story, and then you're done. You log off, and then in between patches where there's no story updates, you don't do anything. You just log in, do your dailies, log out. So I feel like this game scratches an itch because it allows you to play and it gives you motivation to keep playing. It allows you to grind. There's nothing stopping you from continuing to play until you feel content and satiated. And I really like that aspect. I've been wanting a game where you could just continually play. And that's something this game nails perfectly. And I know there are some people who might not like that. And for people who don't like that aspect, this might not be the game for you. But if you wanted something that you can kind of sink your teeth into, continue playing for a while, well, this is the game for you, provided you like the gameplay. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the story. It's the thing that brings everything together. It contextualizes all this combat. I haven't watched many reviews, but from those that I have, I'd have to agree with what they say about the story. The story does get better later. The pacing, the voice acting, and the visuals get better. And I won't be giving any spoilers away in this video, so you don't need to worry about that. But anyway, the story itself begins pretty much like all other games in this space. So it doesn't really have originality going for it, at least at the start. But what really brings the story down for me is the character's psyche. The pacing here is very slow. On top of that, her voice is Wuthering Waves Yang Yang 2.0. It's just super slow, low energy, dragging, stilted. This cadence really kills it for me. Towards the end of the arc, the story becomes way more interesting and picks up quite a bit. Now, I'm not going to tell you to skip the early story, but if you did, I'd understand. I like how this story's dialogue feels more grounded than other games in the space. You're not trying to decipher ancient plots and sift through stilted dialogue to piece a story together. It just is what it is, at least at this point in the game. Another thing I enjoy about the story and in general about the game is the choices it gives. I like how the conversations flow differently depending on your decisions. It's not just an illusion of choice. It actually affects the dialogue quite a bit. And I also like how you can roll the dice in interactions. A lot of choices you make affect the impression people have of you. and you get personality stats. This brings back that old D&D feel. Do you have enough charisma to distract the tavern? Roll the dice and find out. So, in conclusion, if I had to rate this game, I would have initially given it a 6 out of 10, and that mainly drops down due to the early story pacing, the mid visuals, and the massive amount of bugs. But the fact that they're making such a bold move in monetization and the devs' dedication to updating and patching out some of these problems has me raising the score to a 7.5. Was I right to be worried about this game? Absolutely. I definitely think they could have worked on this a bit more before dropping it, but all in all, it didn't turn out too bad. Anyways, have you played Duet Night Abyss? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And until next time, I'll catch you in the waves. Peace.